Hey everyone, my name is Rooster and welcome back to Mechabellum. In today's video, I want to specifically focus on the unit cards that will be offered in the highlighted game and the way that I respond to them, thinking specifically about what my opponent is likely to pick and what my best answer is in that scenario. Without further ado, let's get into the game, and I hope that this will help you in your games as well. Alright, and here we are. I am playing against a player known as Red Hair to the English-speaking community, who is arguably the best, if not at least the most consistent high MMR player in Mechabellum right now. So a very scary and worthy opponent. Having a look at these packs, for me, it's between heavy armor and supply spec crawler sledge. I was really on the fence with this one. My opponent decides to go for cost control, starting with Arclight and Phoenix. And I do happen to choose heavy armor at the very, very end, which is, I have to admit, a very good matchup for me right from the get-go, because obviously his units have reduced stats by 13%, and mine have 17% more HP, so the gap there is quite massive. But still, there are some opportunities here for him to get ahead, because he does get the 100 supplies every round, and I have no such benefit. I decided to play standard this game. I haven't had much success pushing into Red Hair in most of my games, so I decided to try out a standard game here. As you can see, both of us like to position on one side, going asymmetrical, even though we're playing around our towers, and this kind of allows us to overpower one side and play strong side, weak side, which oftentimes will be a bit easier, especially if you want to get something like a Vulcan, which is expensive early on and you can only buy one. It allows you to immediately put it on the side that most of your units are on. The positioning here for me is crawlers behind the towers. I put them horizontally. I do this always now to prevent them from all being pulled by those pesky flanks that you do see. And I put my fangs behind it. I'm not really afraid of any shenanigans happening here. I mean, he's cost control, like this type of setup is fine. And then crawlers, like to put in the corners. You could even put them 3 squares to the left if you want to leave yourself some space for rhinos, because sometimes people will still try and go for these flanks with, say, crawler, Arclight or crawler sledge even, and a rhino then is a unit that can clear that somewhat easily. But this is also like perfectly okay. So, round 1. I should be favored here. My opponent went for 2 fangs. Didn't have any more money to spend. He also, by the way, sold one of his Arclights. The reason why he does this is because he kind of has to go into Vulcan, since his Arclights, as you can see, do not one-shot my crawlers right now. And they never will. As long as I match his attack enhancement with my defense enhancement, my crawlers will always, at equal level, have more hit points than the Arclight does with one shot. So yeah, he kind of has to go for Vulcan. But that's fine as cost control. Vulcan is more efficient anyway, and he has a lot of money early on, so he can purchase a Vulcan next round if he wants to. And here the debuff for me is not that good. I wasn't able to do all too much with it. He gets the debuff in return. His Phoenixes take out my Phoenixes. And he does end up winning the round. Kind of a bad timing there, but nothing we can't overcome here. First round is not all that important, especially in standard v standard. You're kind of playing for the mid to late game. So, round 2, and we immediately see some unit cards being offered. Now, here I immediately have to realize something. So what's not good? Hacker is not good. None of us really have anything to do with it. It's also one of the it is the lowest value card here. Rhino is somewhat fine, but I don't think it'll have all that much impact in this standard game. Wraith, kind of similar. It's not that good in standard. It has very low range and it suffers against Phoenixes, which are already on the board. So really the only option here for the both of us is Wasp. I could try and go for Rhino, but the value here is the same. And if he picks Wasp, which he does, and I don't pick it, I will have to start answering that the round after. Or I would have to preemptively buy something like a Mustang, which I don't really want to do, since I expect him to go for Vulcan. And so I go for my own Wasp. They do have more stats than his, and I'm just hoping that my Wasps can help take out his Wasps, and that will be enough, and I don't have to get any dedicated anti-air chaff clear. So this is already, I think, an important realization, understanding what the options are for the both of us, and trying to preemptively respond to any threats he might create for me by picking up a certain unit card. I decide to go for even more Wasps. The reason I do this is because I really want to make sure that I can somewhat guarantee winning the air war if in the case he does pick up the Wasps. So now I'm at least ahead, and it also allows me to potentially invest more into them at some point. I do like playing something like Stormcallers with Incendiary Bomb on them, or like the fire, and then playing Wasps all the way in the back to kind of burn everything on the ground. Playing Wasps will often force your opponent into taking Mustang, and then something like ground effects, fire especially, can be very powerful. And so yeah, indeed the Vulcan comes out. The Wasps were at the last second moved onto the right side, which is also where my level 2 Wasps are. And as you can see, the engagement is favorable for me, so I managed to take out his Wasps. We move on to the Fangs. I will get debuffed here, but I already took out all of the enemy units, and it looks like I might get a good debuff going. Oh, 2 of my Phoenixes do go down, but the other ones are behind the Fangs. And his Fangs are sort of late, so here we go. 1 Phoenix taken out. There go the others, so really good debuff for me, and I should win the round purely because he has no sufficient anti-air left. And I do manage to take out the Vulcan, which is very nice, because I would rather not have to take 400 damage if I can. So winning the round here, really, really good. And I stay above 4k hit points still. Both of us very healthy, by the way. Haste module has shown up. My opponent picks improved firepower control system. I go for haste module because I didn't see that I could pick up improved, and put it on a level 2 Phoenix, but he didn't have like the biggest of targets yet, and I felt like I didn't need it. So I go for the haste module instead. It's kind of a similar item in that it gives attack bonus, but you don't have to pay all that much for it to get it. And it's flexible, you can put it on different types of units. So here, my opponent goes for immediate Mustang and range, and that's what I say, right? My opponent tries to counter the Wasps because he realizes that in the Wasp mirror, I am currently winning, right? Which is also a product of him being cost control into heavy armor, but it forces him to go a certain direction. And this is exactly what I was planning for, or realizing this. I go for Stormcallers, one because Stormcallers are just very good because the only chaff he currently has is Fangs, and because he also has a Vulcan. So I get more single target DPS there to take out the big boys, and I also start setting up for Firecallers with the Incendiary Bomb, and then to take out the Fangs as well as the potential Mustangs, which now have materialized into actual Mustangs on the board. The haste module for me goes onto the Wasps at the back. I think they've done a great job so far. Second on damage overall. And I do see myself taking into range here at some point, because I have a feeling that they will do a great job. So here we can speed things up a little bit. Both of us. I think I pick up one more crawler here at the back. And so here we go. Stormcallers have locked onto the Vulcan now, so good damage. I am still winning that right side quite convincingly. Storm's helping out. And my wasps, actually some of them managed to survive. We get another debuff. And that means the Stormcallers are to fire yet another salvo at that Vulcan. It doesn't quite die though. But it looks like we're fine. Yes, all of the units just about turn. Good engagement from me, and I'm able to get the other tower with my surviving wasps, which I can level now. And that's another round win on the board for me. Really happy with how this is going so far. Not having the Vulcan survive saves me up to 800 hit points already, and it just gives me so much more freedom in the early game. Tank production line is a great item for my opponent. He does pick it up. Will likely go onto one of the Vulcans, and he picks up a second Vulcan now on round 4. For me, I think here I'm in between getting Ion Blast and skipping. I kind of wanted to get these levels, and I was thinking about... What was I thinking about? I think I was considering buying 2 more Storms, getting Fire, and then upgrading these 2, which would cost 900. But instead, I think, you know what? I don't necessarily need Fire right now, even though it's good. I can just delay it, take the Ion Blast. It's one of the more powerful spells in the game. It only has a 3-round cooldown. On round 4, if the game does go to round 7, then I will get it back. And it just allows me to guaranteed take out one of the Vulcans. So I do pick it up. And then I probably will be buying 2 more sets of Stormcallers to set up what I was going for, right? Delaying the Incendiary Bomb by 1 turn. But it should be fine. My opponent still doesn't have the most chaff, and I expect him to, well, buy another Vulcan. I'm not in any, like, trouble here yet when it comes to chaff clear. Opponent goes for Crawlers. Distraction Crawlers to make me miss my first salvos, and I position my Ion Beam here. It is a little late. The Ion Beam moves a bit slower. I think it moves at like 30 meters a second, and it catches up to the units now though. Luckily, the Vulcan does stay there, and I do manage to take it out. So left side is dealt with, even though it's my weak side. Phoenixes here, by the way, have been leveled, as have been the Wasps. So level 3 Wasp right now, quite scary, and they have a lot of DPS. And another successful round. Obviously, this is somewhat expected, since I did take the active, which cost me 300. But I feel like I'm in a very good spot here. Denying my opponent some XP, doing some good early damage, and I like the position that I'm in comp-wise, knowing that I'll be going for the Fire Callers. Now, this is a very crucial point in the game. Round 5, we get another unit drop. And so here, when we look at the cards, there is one obvious answer for my opponent, and it is Fortress. Why? Because Fortress can go Fortress Anti-Air. It's a level 2, so it's also rather tanky. And I am already playing Phoenix as well as Wasp. One is high level. So trying to go for Anti-Air here is very, very valuable and very likely for him. So with that knowledge, what are my options? I don't think I can go into Fortress Anti-Air on turn 5 with what I currently have. I feel like that's a death sentence. There's no need to try and get my Phoenixes out of range or try and get like a Wraith in front of it. I haven't teched them yet. So, and I only have 2 sets of Phoenixes and 1 high level pack of Wasps. I can still sell out of this if I start now. So what I decide to do, and this is a relatively like common play comp-wise, is that when this happens, you can sell out of your Phoenixes and then go for Melters instead. And Melter with Fire Callers is actually a really, really good comp, especially into what my opponent has. So what I'll be doing right now is I'll take the more expensive unit card, which is the... both the Wraith and the Fortress are worth the same, but the Fortress at least has unlock cost as well. So I should pick the Fortress here and sell it. And then immediately... or rather, take the Fortress. I could even keep it since it's really good into his board. and then sell out of the Phoenix and immediately start buying melters. And I mean, the transition doesn't cost me all that much either, right? Like going from Phoenix with fire collars into melter with fire collars isn't a bad transition to make. Even if my opponent picked one of the other free unit cards, I would still have a great comp. But this prevents me and already like gives me a turn to sell out. And yeah, you can see I already sell out of my Phoenixes and I immediately tech into the fire collars. Melter has been picked up. And with 300 left, let's see what I decide to do. I pick up another crawler. And both of the tower buffs have been taken up for me. So I am really ahead in terms of stats, since my opponent with the cost control also hasn't gotten any of the tower buffs. Yeah, here you can see opponent even went for barrier as well. So I am really, really happy right now with the transition that I made. Fortress also doing a fantastic job on the right side. Left side is somewhat struggling, but again, I do have Stormcallers, and so him buying into another ground giant just means that my Stormcallers get even more value. They are good at providing some chaff clear with the fire, and they also have great single target DPS with many big targets to hit right now. As we move towards the tower, we should get the debuff. And the melter should be able to take down these Phoenixes. And my Fortress even lives? It does. So Fortress lives, I deal a good amount of damage, and I send my opponent down to 1800 hit points. So a really, really good round there for me, right? I preemptively, or I predict what my opponent is going to do, and I immediately react. Especially because I know that here there is a comp that I can go for with the Melter Stormcaller that isn't vulnerable to this play. And it means that I don't lose any of the tempo I had previous by winning those rounds, setting up my board, using the spells. I don't lose anything. And leveling units here isn't bad for me. I didn't tech them. I can just retrieve and get back all that money by selling out of it. I didn't commit. Right? And not committing is something that's very, very important right now with the free unit cards, and especially in high MMR, that will often dictate who will have a better chance of winning. Because free unit cards can offer a massive counter to your opponent, and so playing something that isn't as vulnerable to hard counters and playing something that is flexible, can transition into a different comp, will certainly help you and give you better odds at success. And so here I decide to skip. There's another haste module, there's a Mustang production line, but I don't feel like I need any of it. Senior attack, like I'm playing Stormcallers with fire, I'm playing Melters. I don't think I need that damage. My damage output is more than enough. And yeah. Instead, I just decide to develop my board because I think I have a winning board here. I buy more melters, I give them range. Here we go, triple melter, pick up on round 6. I also decide to buy some oil because I want to try and I could even like finish my opponent here on the spot. I have the money, and so I decide to put down some oil, hoping that my opponent will set his own units on fire with the Vulcan. And with the amount of giants that I have on the board, if they survive, 1800 hit points should be more than doable. I sold out of my wasps, which were worth 300 to make all of this possible. And I decided to put the haste module onto my fortress, since it was doing a relatively good job last time. Fire lands immediately. And of course, it's set on fire by my Stormcallers, by the way. No need for the opponent's Vulcan. Opponent went for Scorpion, double tech, siege mode acid. But that might just be a little too late. Because all of these units aren't that good into Stormcaller. And guess what? They're not all that good into Melter at this stage, right? Siege mode Scorpions can definitely beat Melters, but they can't do it this late into the game when I already have 4 of them. And that is more than enough damage. So there we go. That's a 6-round win. And yes, I know I am favored cost control versus heavy armor. But in this specific game, there are a couple things that I correctly identified, right? From the unit cards, picking the wasps early on, making sure that I don't put myself behind by not picking wasps, my opponent picking the wasps, and then me having to answer them next round when I'd rather have the money to develop my board in a different way. Realizing that my opponent is going to take the fortress, is going to likely take anti-air into my board, which is very air unit heavy at that point, with the wasps, high-level Phoenix, selling out of it and transitioning into the melters. Also, the Stormcallers here, really powerful right now. People don't really want to buy War Factories anymore since they are so expensive. The upkeep cost is very high. And so Stormcallers are just really powerful. The Wasps, because my opponent realizes he's losing that fight, forces him into going Mustang as the only good counter, really, aside from anti-air, into the Wasps. And that is something, or a unit that struggles a lot into Firecallers. I also go Firecallers because I realize that my opponent has more money than me early on, and so will be able to bring out a Vulcan early on. As for me, as heavy armor, it's kind of hard to do. I would have to maybe do it round 3 or even round 4, which is a little late for my chaff clear. So instead, I go for Stormcallers and go for Stormcaller Fire as a cheaper option that I can bring out earlier to not put myself behind. I hope that this was an insightful game. It's a short one, but I think that it shows a way of thinking that is very helpful in the current state of the game with the free units. Sometimes you might not have an out, but in a lot of the games, you will be able to predict and counter, or at least react to what your opponent is likely going to play. So with that being said, I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, and subscribe if you want to stay up to date with all of my latest content. Also, be sure to check me out on Twitch if you want to see me play live. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.